Hello, welcome to Planes, and another one of my videos. Thank you very much for watching. How does a country disconnected from the outside world and the second most sanctioned country manage to keep their airline in the air? An airline with a history of accidents from a secretive state. I am of course talking about Air Koryo, North Korea's only airline which can trace its roots back to the 1950s. It's not easy for a secretive country to function, much less operate an airline. A reality caused by their leaders' choices to be reclusive and punitive international sanctions for its nuclear program. So how does North Korea's airline keep its fleet in the air? With sanctions, it is not supposed to have any access to spare parts and servicing. After hearing how they survive, you might decide that you never want to set foot on any of their planes. Their fleet has no Airbus and Boeing planes. It consists of 16 Soviet-era planes. These include 2 Tu-204s, 2 Antonov 148, 2 Ilyushin 62M and 2 Tu-154. Between 2006 and 2020, when it was allowed to operate in the EU, the airline used its most modern Tu-204-300. This is the plane Kim Jong Un was pictured flying. The planes in his fleet are sturdy but old with their legendary green cockpit color, and most of their planes have old-fashioned steam gauges. But what matters is that they work, but are they safe? But what we do know is that North Koreans are very self-reliant. The priority of their airline is not to invest in new planes, but instead it invests heavily in the maintenance of its existing fleet. The airline has a large fleet, but most of what they have are in storage, including those packed at Pyongyang Airport. Some planes not in service or not part of the fleet have been cannibalized for spare parts so as to keep the planes in use in good working condition. Crucially, it has stockpiled spare parts over decades. They have learned how to reverse engineer, and local fabrication of parts allow them to replace critical components without relying on external suppliers. In terms of external suppliers, Russia has many Soviet-era planes in storage, as do many former Soviet Union satellite states. With it having good relations with Russia, these two most sanctioned countries, it would not surprise me if the Russians are helping the North Koreans at this time. None of the planes in Air Koryo's fleet are still in production. But the reality is that North Korea has years and years of experience with these old planes, and they are self-reliant because they have to be. There is a saying that necessity is the mother of invention. That ingenuity has not resulted in them building their own planes, which would be a mammoth task. Air Koryo has its own pilots and engineers. North Korea obviously don't publicize full particulars, as these would invite further sanctions from Western nations. Their citizens do not have access to the World Wide Web, only an intranet, so the chances of a North Korean pilot revealing it all in a vlog is unlikely. Despite all of this, I would fly Air Koryo, as this would be my only way of getting to North Korea. Air Koryo flies to 3 international destinations. Vladivostok, which is in Russia's far east and not far from North Korea, with return flights every Monday and Friday. The other 2 destinations are in China. It flies in and out of Beijing and Shenyang every Saturday. For flights to Vladivostok, it normally uses the Tu-204. Flights to Shenyang is the Antonov 148, and flights to Beijing is the Tupolev 154. The airline also serves 5 domestic routes, including Shenyang, which serves the famous Mount Peak 2. Who are the kind of passengers who fly on Air Koryo? Firstly, anyone who has an authorized reason to go to North Korea would have to use this airline. This of course excludes special flights, such as when the Russian president visited North Korea. It is worth noting that the North Korean leader Kim Jong Un is known to dislike flying, and used his slow armored train to travel to Vladivostok in Russia. We can see the video of the North Korean leader in the cockpit of an Air Koryo TU-204 300. It is reported that he learned to fly this plane in a few hours, and it's up to you as to whether or not you want to believe the story. There are North Korean tour groups with Uri tours and Koryo tours. During the pandemic, North Korea suspended all internationally scheduled flights for 3 years from 2020 until services were resumed in 2023. What we do know is that the tours through Russia are definitely in full flow, and I have put a link to Tupolev Aviation, who recently visited the country. It's a great video and is worth watching. Based on the information from Koryo Tours, the price of a 7-day tour, including flight, hotel and food, is about $2,500, and with extras should not exceed $3,000. We have to then add the cost of flights and hotel to get to Vladivostok or Beijing, and it all seems quite pricey, though it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. We can see that internally the cabin of the aircraft has the original seats, which looks quite old-fashioned. However, any visitor must have an official guide who decides where you go, so you will not be allowed to roam free. If you fancy spending some time in a North Korean prison, try to wander off on your own, and you will also stick out like a sore thumb. Prior to the imposition of comprehensive UN sanctions, its airline Air Koryo had a more extensive schedule, which included traveling to the European Union, Malaysia, Kuwait and other countries. The airline does have a history of accidents. On the 30th of June 1979, it had an accident at Budapest Airport. The pilot caused a hard landing and the landing gear collapsed with wing damage, but no injuries. If reports are to be believed, that pilot must have obviously got into a lot of trouble. On the 1st of July 1983, an Ilyushin 62 was landed in Conakry in Guinea in West Africa on a flight from Pyongyang when it crashed into a mountain, killing all 23 on board. The last accident was on 15th August 2006, some 18 years ago, when a Tupolev 154 landing at Beijing suffered a runway excursion. There were no injuries and the plane was repaired. So, would you be prepared to fly Air Koryo? Give your views in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching and see you next time. Goodbye.